Okay, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this special meeting of the Board of Education to order. Ms. Bowie, will you please call the roll?
Good morning. Stephanie Craybill.
Here.
Stephanie Walker.
Here.
Nelson Boyer.
Here.
Stephanie Adams.
Here.
Judy Justice. Hugh McManus.
Here.
Pete Wildeboer.
Present.
Okay, first on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do I hear a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
And second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Faust and Ms. Sutton.
Good morning, everyone. We have gone back to the table and we have about, I think, 3 renditions of our budget, and our goal is to make it work. We're going to present the one that I believe is the best for our district. However, all 3 snapshots of the budget is going to require, over the 3 years, cuts in positions. There's no way for us to actually fund this budget with increases without cuts in positions. So we want to just start off by there. So when we were creating the budget, the first step that we do is to look at our strategic plans and the goals. So next slide. So what we did is we go back and we looked at how the board put the prioritization of.
Can you pause for a second? Colin says he can't hear. Okay, sorry, I'm sorry.
Number 1, safety, wellness, people and places was number 1. Supportive environment for teachers and staff was number 2. Academic performance was number 3. Equity, diversity, and inclusion is number 4. Family engagement is number 5. Community partnerships is number 6. So what we have to in turn do is align all the priorities up to our budget to ensure that we are looking at the board's first priority, second priority, and as you get down, there's not as much effort put into the issues that are lower ranking, because we got to make sure that we fund the first, at least the top 3 board, and especially the top 1 of the board. Next slide.
Are these slides in our notebook, or are you just? They're in here.
This one.
First one.
So on the next one, so what we had to do is look at allotments. And earlier I was stating to you about how we are funded. And we're funded by the state and our local. And I was sharing with you 3 days ago that we fund a lot of positions out of our local fund. So what makes us fund those? So our state allotment for assistant principals is at 24 for 10.5 months, or 21 positions, and all they'll fund us for 12 months. So we make up the difference with 59 positions. So in an effort, I can't see that at the bottom.
Sorry. Oh.
In an effort to make sure that we are meeting the end goal for 3 years, these are things that we would have to do. To reach the state allotment, we would need to eliminate 34 positions. That's not this year, let's say that, but we have to do that within the next 3 years. The next slide, please. In the next slide, you will find, I need for you to advance this one. So in the next one, you will see our teacher enrichment, so elementary enrichment. So that's where you have your RP teacher, your band, if we have a band teacher there, those are the enrichment. With our current state allotments, the state staff sits at 58 teachers throughout the district. We have 75 positions, so we do 3 per school regardless of the size of the school. So even if you have a school of 300, 200, we give you the 3 positions. So in order to get to the state allotment, we'd have to decrease by 17. Next slide, please.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
What's enrichment positions?
Enrichment position would be art,
Okay.
your special.
Under specials.
They skip ahead just a little bit. So
Yeah.
You missed one.
slide before is the,
That doesn't include AIG,
Yeah.
No, it's.
Okay, so back one is in,
but that isn't.
sorry. If you go back one, it's the instructional support.
right before the elementary one. You gotta go back one more.
Is AIG.
There you go.
So here, the state staff sets at 115 based on our enrollment size. However, with our local funds, we add additional, so we're at 238 positions. So in order to reach the state allotment for instructional support, we'd have to eliminate 123 to get back in alignment. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I can totally understand about the state allotment. Are we going to go through every state allotment, then get down to what we
We're
really
going to
would?
do this to make sure that you are fully aware
I am.
of what we are. Okay, next slide, thank you. Next slide. AIG, so I know there was some concern about AIG. We do have AIG in all of our schools. We have 34 AIG teachers. According to the state, there's 19, so we fund additional positions. So in order to get back in alignment, you would have to have, we would eliminate 15. Next slide.
Question over here.
Yes.
Would these be locally funded positions?
These are currently all locally funded. Yes.
All-
Yes, all of these are locally funded. So the reason why I'm sharing this with you is to say, these are all the positions that we already have. And when we're going through the budget and we're trying to look to fund a raise, we have to do something different because we can't keep everything and then add more because our budget does not lend itself to that.
If I understand, you said that some schools, every school has an AIG position.
Every elementary,
Program.
every middle, the high school, they do, I think they share a position and they do consultation.
But some principals are using the AIG for classroom and/or other assignments. Are they all using their AIG?
We would have to, I can't confirm nor deny
I can.
how they're using it in all of their positions. What I'm saying is that we give the positions.
Maybe Ms. Varner can answer that.
She wouldn't know.
Well, I actually am the AIG advisor, and what they do is every school has an AIG teacher, and some of them they share, but most of them they don't, and every one of them has an AIG program. And also, what they do is they provide enrichment for kids who possibly will be testing and they're, will qualify, and kids that are real close. And then they also help the other teachers within the building work with the kids within the classroom that are interminged so that everybody will benefit from the program. So does that answer the question?
So the only other issue is that not every school has an identified student in
Right.
AIG, even though we provide them with a position. And so I'm not denying the fact that we should have these positions. I'm just saying that we can't have everything and then do everything that the board wants.
But that's not, this is not speaking to the present, to cut. You're talking about in
No.
3 years.
We have to, over 3 years, you're gonna have to shave off because,
So much.
so I'm introducing what Ashley is gonna have to now explain. So, the state allotment that we have for state teachers, based on our size, based on the number of students, 1,129 students. We then go above and beyond and we have 1,151 students that we support. So again, 22 classroom positions would need to be eliminated to get back to the state because we're funding all of these positions through local funds. Next slide. This is just something I wanted to help us dispel. When we're talking about our investment and when individuals we do have positions that are out there that will pay $24 an hour, $15 an hour. But I wanted you to know that with our salary and with the district, so the salary for this would be a 14-year teacher, $49,640, and the supplement would be $8,500, which would give them a grand total of $58,140. However, If you go over and then what the district provides for them are annual leave at $3,825.16, personal leave dollars, which is $458.10, FICA, which costs the district $4,447.71, retirement, which we pay into, is $13,308.25, and then a hospitalization, which is your benefits package. So that whole package is worth $29,000, which gives us a grand total of $87,198.22. So when we think about what we are paying for staff, that's the
Benefit.
the grand total. So it's not just where we say, oh, it's one teacher, this teacher costs $49,000. That teacher actually costs $87,000. And the next slide, so the next slide will just go on and it'll show teacher assistants, and it does the same thing. A teacher assistant with 10 years of experience is 27. However, the benefits package that we give is $17,000, which gives us a grand total of that position for someone who's 10 years is $45,000. So again, when we are looking at those things, then we have another example of another individual. So if you can advance the next one. So that one would, of course, be the plumbing. So now I wanted to just give you background information before Ashley gets in front of you and starts to talk about the budget and what we are doing and how we are there and what we have to do in order to sustain the ask or request from the board. Ashley.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning. I was about to say good evening. Good morning. It's good to see everybody. So I wanted to start with sharing some information that'll be common with all the different options. So this morning I'm coming back with the 3 options that we talked about at our last meeting, and we'll go through those one by one. But the things that are going to be common in all 3 options is in all of these options we are using for next fiscal year, we're going to be giving a raise of the higher of $15 minimum wage, or 2.5% if they were not included in the Hill consultant study that we've been talking about. And then for the future years, we're going to be projecting out a 2% raise. And then for benefits for the current year, for this upcoming year, we're including a cost of retirement of that 5.7%. Health insurance is 5.4%, and then projecting.
I'll see if I can find it more.
And then projecting out for the future 2 years, we're going to use 3% for both those retirement rates. We've also included in these options a bonus for our employees that are not included in the year of the raise. So, for example, in the first year, since we're going to be implementing these over 3 years, the first year would just be our bus and grade 55 through 57. And so they wouldn't get the bonus because they'll get the raise the first year. But the grades 58 through 78 would get the $1,000 bonus. And then grades 66 through 78 would get the bonus in that third year because, or I'm sorry, that second year, because they haven't gotten the raise yet.
Yes, are these funds coming from the ESSER funds, the bonuses?
I'm going to recommend that we use our fund balance to be able to pay the bonuses because it's a one-time payment, and we're trying to spend down our fund balance to get down to that $10 million. So you'll see through all 3 plans, we're using $6 million of fund balance, which was based on the county recommendation from last year. Yes, ma'am.
This is without the ones that we requested, the $16 and the $17. This is if we didn't do either.
No, this is going to be in everything. So this,
Okay.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, so this slide, I'm starting with this because this information is going to be common. This information is included in all 3 options.
3 years.
Okay? All 3 options, we're spreading the implementation over 3 years.
So instead of hiring in new positions that we say we might need, we're giving the bonuses instead to spend down the fund balance. I mean, this was a decision?
No.
Okay.
No. What we are considering, because in the beginning, when you do 16, it's a lower amount. So then we are able to spread out our money. So the individuals who will not get their raises in year one would get $1,000 for year two. And then at the end, so then there would be three groups.
Okay,
So
so-
then the third group would get $1,000.
So we're not doing the 16%.
Yes, we are. That's what we're.
We are doing the 16%.
16. She hadn't been able to get the room.
Madam Chair.
I'm going to just jump in right now, is that, first of all, we need to follow our parliamentary procedures, so I need to recognize speakers before they speak out. And let's go ahead and let her present and then write down your questions.
Point of
So,
order.
yes.
If we have questions as we go, we need to ask them.
Yeah.
Because in 2
Why
hours,
can't, why
we're
can't we
voting.
write them down and come back?
It's because it's more difficult to understand the context.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I think it's important that as board members, we listen more than talk today. I think
ask
that we need
questions.
to listen because the information is going to be presented to us. Please, let's just listen to what is being presented. They are trying to give us the information that we have requested. This is the third time we've done this, and I don't believe that people have been listening. So I
That's
think
your
we need to
opinion.
listen, please.
Point of order.
Miss Justice, Miss Walker, it is your turn.
Ms. Adams, I don't appreciate the lecture, and I'm not trying to be ugly
Yes.
here, but I legitimately, as so many numbers, I spent all day looking at numbers. So if I just need to ask a question to understand before we move on, I would like to do that. I know you don't like it, and I know you've probably had discussions, but like I haven't. So just to clarify.
That's on you. You
Excuse
can
me,
call him
excuse me,
anytime.
Excuse me. Miss Justice, do you have a comment?
Yeah, point of order. We don't need to be lecturing each other. We're trying to find out information. That just wasted time there.
And so is this, so can we
Wait a
just move
second,
on,
let me
please?
finish about the questions, please. We don't understand unless we ask questions. If we list things down and 5 or 10 minutes later, we're asking, the context disappears. We're doing this that's why we're doing this. We've got 2 hours. So let us please find out what's going on and understand the context of what's going on.
So point of order here, if you want to ask a question, raise your hand, I will recognize you.
Thank you.
All right. Miss Sutton, can you please go?
Yes, so the bonuses that I'm showing here that we would pay, so whatever employee doesn't receive a raise in that year, they would get the bonus, as long as they were in this classified scales that we're referencing. And I'm recommending that we pay the bonus, we split it and pay $500 in November and pay $500 in May. And we make it, if the employee is employed as of the first day of November, they would get the bonus. If they're employed as of the first day of May, they would get the bonus. So that would be my recommendation.
Let's get that.
Okay, so now let's start with the first plan. And this is the plan that we would recommend. As we're going through, please let me know if something isn't clear. But the $16 minimum pay is the one that we're going over now, and this has a 1% step. So and you'll see this with each plan. We've split it into these same 3 groups. So grades, it would include bus through grades 55 through 57. The average increase is going to be about 21%, and the minimum is 11%. When grades 58 through 65 go on the new scale, the average increase is 21%, and the minimum is going to be 12%. Grades 66 through 78, the increase would be 16%, and the minimum would be 6%. And you do have this in your binder if it's easier to read than trying to see on the screen. This is the same format that we looked at last time. And I tried, you'll see when we get to the option we looked at last time, I made a few changes to that one just for consistency, trying to make sure that we're looking at something that's comparable. So you'll see for the revenue, we're using $6 million of fund balance like we had talked about before to get down to our $10 million. We are repurposing ESSER funds with this plan. We're using $7.8 million. And I'm reading through the total column, but it does have it broken down there for you each year, how much we're using. And then the county request is the bottom line, and so that's going to be $2 million would be for next year, 2.5 in fiscal year 24, and 5.3 in fiscal year 25.
Ms. Walker?
I just want clarification on where you're looking. I'm sorry. You said in our binder.
Yep.
This-
Yes, so if you look in your binder, you should have the PowerPoint from our last meeting, and then you also have, behind the second tab, I think it has today's date. I think the PowerPoint is the first item behind that tab. And then I
Okay.
believe I'm on page maybe 4 of that PowerPoint.
So we actually
And it's
have
theirs.
it in two different places.
Yep, it's in the PowerPoint, and it's also an extra document that
Okay. So we have two
behind the
documents.
PowerPoint.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Wildebohr had a question?
And I apologize for asking the question quickly, but one of the county commissioners, I actually got on the phone and talked to them myself, and they said, you know, they're very concerned about our ESSER funds. In spending down this ESSER fund, this basically $8 million of that, how much would we have left?
So that's a very good question.
Oh.
So,
I love that. Page, next page, thank you.
so I did not go through and list all the uses of our ESSER like we did in the previous, in our previous meeting, but you do have that PowerPoint to refer back to if you would like to see how we're using those ESSER funds. Here, I'm only listing the items that we would repurpose. So with this plan, we would repurpose some money that had been set aside for PPE supplies and equipment. We would repurpose $1 million that we had set aside for some curriculum. And then the remaining is some stabilization reserve we had set aside to help us with our student enrollment going down and state revenue decreases. So we would use that to be able to fund the plan. And at the end of the 3 years, we would cut about 134 positions at that time.
So as far as the ESSER budget is the one that you had from Tuesday.
Right.
So if you pull that one, and then it'll match with this one.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah.
I backed up just because I skipped the expenditures. So this was the slide before the ESSER slide here. So in this plan, you see the state mandates. So that's going to be the same with every option. The salary study implementation, that's the piece that's different because each plan costs a different amount. And then you see we've added a line there for the bonuses, and we've also made the adjustment for the local, state and local reductions that you guys had talked about at the last meeting. So we pulled that position out. We made some adjustments here for going forward. And then you have the county appropriation information at the bottom for your information. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the county request. So with this option, this is what the county request would look like. And with each option, I've got the county request behind the option. And as you see here, our estimated enrollment, this number might look different to you or not what you're expecting to see, the 24,532. This is the number that the county is projecting for us, okay? And so based on that enrollment number, and we're assuming through all of these options that the county would keep that same enrollment number for us because we're doing our request based on this need of the salary scale.
And so with that, so if the county is at 24,553, and we are saying it's going to be about 25, wherever the state comes in after that 20-day, that's where we'll get funded. However, when she talked about the stabilization fund, that's what we have to do to get back in sync. So there's some stabilization funding through ESSER that we were using in the event that we come in with more than 25,000 students, above what the county is projecting for us.
Right, and so the county is projecting that 24,532. Our local projection was 25,447, so it's a difference of about 915 students. That's just for informational purposes. And you'll see, so across the top, we have our request for each of the 3 years, and we have that total of $102 million. And then at the bottom, we have our complete county request. So I hope that's not confusing, but I've taken the operating budget request from the top, and I've just added it to the chart in the bottom, along with our capital request that we went over last time, and the pre-K expansion and continued grant we went over last time, and the maintenance and supervisor information. So you have a grand total there of the county request, and that's including the charter schools as well. So now we'll move on to the second option. So with this option, this was the $17 minimum pay with a 1% step. And here, once again, the same grades, 55 through 57, and that includes bus, would have an average increase of 29%, with the minimum being 15%. Grades 58 through 65, average increase of 29%, with a minimum of 19. 66 through 78, an increase of 23% with a minimum of 13. And so now let's look at the details for that. So entering this information into this summary chart, we see the same information for mandated salary increases. You see the new numbers for this plan for salary study implementation. And we've added the same bonuses, those amounts are the same. And we have our revenue down below. So the difference here is we're using more ESSER, so we'll go through what we're repurposing in the ESSER plan to fund that. And of course, we we were able in this plan to keep those first 2 years the same as in that first plan, but the third year is different. That county request, that third year would be $8.5 million to have that. And so in total, over the 3 years, the county request would be $13 million. With this plan, in order to fund, we had to repurpose, like I had mentioned before, more ESSER funds. Here we're having to pick up some HVAC and facility projects money. So we didn't have to eliminate all of those projects, but we did have to take some of those funds. And then we also taken the PPE supply and equipment funds that we were taking before. Summer learning reduced by $2 million. After school was taken out. Curriculum reduced by $95,771. And then, of course, the same stabilization reserve that we talked about before, that would come out. And that would cut about 230 positions.
And that comes from the presentation I started off with. That's why we're showing the red. And so you'd have to go back and parallel those with the positions.
I'm sorry, I did not hear that. Could
Excuse
you
me,
repeat that again?
right here.
No, what he just said, to elaborate.
So the red, that position cut is parallel with what I was starting off with.
Okay. We got different colored slides and things going on here, going back and forth up there. I know it is, but it is.
Okay, so, and this would be the county request for that option. The bottom square is the same, other than the request that's coming from the top. And so you'll see in the top the total of the request for our request, plus how that would impact the payment to the charter schools. And so in total, at the end of those 3 years, the county request will be up to $110 million. If there are no questions, yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ms. Justice?
Yes.
Recognized by the chair?
So you've got this projected budget, and we're moving forward, projected numbers. So are we operating off of the 24,532 for all 3 years on this?
Well, we typically don't. That would be what we project. So we can't actually project 3 years out. So what we have to do is go based off of the current number, or the number.
That's
so
the
hope
county.
would be is that number does not get smaller. If that number gets smaller, then of course we're in trouble. Yes.
Mr. McManus?
I waited, so a couple of these are questions, but some of them are just, I don't want to talk about if enrollment goes down each year for the next 3 years, but that's something we might want to think about.
Right.
Number two, I just thought it's important that those that are listening and the public, everyone, so that they know exactly why we're doing this and understanding what options there are, is the cost per teacher that's local, that the state does not pay. And I always do that, but after I saw it at 87,000 for that particular average, that's a lot of money. And most people need to understand that's what it costs us per position local we have to match. Also, it is an expectation, correct me, that the county commissioners, that we reduce our fund balance to 10 million.
Yes.
And that we use all ESSER funds. So will we have exhausted in this, and I think I have that, but all ESSER funds after 2 years?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have met the county commissioners' expectations.
All three of these plans meet those expectations.
And just to add to that, that's scary because there's no wiggle room for us.
I know.
We're writing with that budget, that means everything has to hit the nail on the head every year.
And that's we don't know yet. Plus, it exhausted, I think is the right word.
Right. And no natural disasters because we have no fund balance.
And that's another thing. That's a good statement because the fund balance is for disasters. But anyhow, national, whatever, hurricanes. The bonuses, they do not count toward retirement, or do they?
They will.
They will? Good. That's okay. So that will count toward retirement. But at the end of the 2-year period, if we're not in a better financial situation, we might have to stop it.
Well, what has to happen is that third year, there would be any bonuses because they would pick up and they would be into the $16, $17, they would already be in. However, what we also have to remember is the supplement that the county commissioners give us is not a requirement. So at any given year, they could take that away from us. And being in an election year, that means that they have to elect to continue to give that for the teacher supplement.
Because it all,
Miss, can we let Ms. Justice go?
absolutely.
Clarification
take
of a
our
couple
turns.
things. We're still going to have $10 million in fund balance, correct?
That is our plan.
Okay, so we're not without fund balance in
Well,
case
when we
of.
talk about that, so let's say there's a natural disaster, it takes us anywhere between $19 and $20 million each month to run payroll. So we don't have enough in fund balance to actually run payroll.
Okay, but neither would 16 million, is what you're just saying. So we don't have, if it's 19 million, we already have the 16 million in fund balance, we already don't. So that's sort of a
But we have ESSER funds. If there was something that were to happen right now, I'm just saying we're spending broke is what we're saying.
Well,
And we never want that we're in a financial situation. You never want to be in a position where you don't have any wiggle room.
we've been through this with hurricanes before, so right now, I just
Never-
wanted,
But never with a fund balance of $10,000.
10 million.
No, it was 17 million.
Okay, I just pointed that out, and that's all, that was under debate under previous boards about the amount of the fund balance, this, that, and the other. Other counties have different things, you have, I just wanted to clarify
I just
that.
have to clarify, Madam Board. That's not under debate. That's actually, that's fact.
Well, yes, what I said, I was
17
just,
million. And so what the fund balance comes from, it's actual local funds. So it's local funds that they give you. And if you don't spend them all, then instead of returning, they'll let you move them over to your fund balance. The reason why our county has so much is because we have our commissioners are generous with us. So the money that's given is we're able to keep. State money has to go back, federal dollars, some is able to roll over, but we can't spend those monies on anything. There's more wiggle room with our local funds, and so that's what that means. But we've always had a fund balance. At one year, we did spend down, but we were able to get that money back up. So I just wanted to make sure we were clear on our fund balance.
okay, I want to be clear that.
Mr. Boyer was next.
Yeah, just,
This is getting ridiculous.
just a clarifying question. When we discussed this last year with the county, they wanted us to go lower than 10. We fought pretty hard to keep it at 10. But the suggestion was that there would be a line item in the county budget and that they could transfer funds ahead of a natural disaster. Is that still the expectation? I mean, I know it could go away because we have an election. So, but is that still the expectation, at least for the first year of this budget, that there will be a line item and we can transfer funds if there's an impending disaster?
Well, there's always, but I'll just make it clear that even with the Florence, we are just now getting some of the items repaired this year, and that was from Florence. So it takes a minute. It's if you don't have the funding to do so.
Yeah, I believe the total cost of Florence was around 13 million, if I remember correctly.
And insurance coverage.
Ms. Walker?
Well, speaking to
We just
that,
had to upfront it.
I've had
Yeah.
conversations with commissioners about our fund balance, and they do want it reduced, and they do have emergency funds as well in case. And to Mr. Bowyer's point, they are well aware of natural disasters. We all are, and I know they just don't want us. I think they want us to spend our money wisely. They want to make sure that they want it. If they wanted it a certain amount, they're going to ask us for that, and they know if a disaster comes, they're going to cover us. I'm sure they already told me they have it in emergency fund balance too. So. Just putting that out.
Ms. Sutton, you want to go ahead and
Well,
continue
I
on?
never
Thank
finished
you.
my question. I had two parts.
Ms. Justice?
Okay. I want to point out that statewide, I think every county gives their employees, their teachers, and a lot of them give their classified staff supplements. It varies. It varies. Last year, we were able to have the highest in the state for our teachers for a while. There's others higher now. And some places use bonuses. I mean, that's always going to be contention. That's one of the ways you attract your teachers is by having good, healthy supplements that you can add. So to say that you're not going to have a supplement, even the poorest counties give a very small one.
Well, remember, Leander, the cases. So
And we hope that
Leandro is not able to give, that's why they're actually suing. So we have some that actually give a supplement of $300.
I just said that.
But that's not a given. The only given is your state salary.
Right, and I think everybody knows this by now. I'm just saying that keep saying over and over again that what happens if we don't get a supplement. That's just part of the reality of every district in this state. And in Leandro, I worked in a Leandro County. I know how desperate those funds are needed, but that's not what we're talking about here. So I keep bringing up the fact that the supplement might totally disappear. That is really a moat situation in any district in this county.
Can we move on to option number
Yep.
3? If
So
we're ready?
this is the last option that you wanted to talk through today. $16 minimum pay with the 2% step. Grades 55 through 57, the average increase was 33% with a minimum of 17%. 58 through 65 grades would be an increase of 34% with a minimum of 15. 66 through 78 average increase would be 33%, minimum 13. Looking at the details here, you see how we would implement over those 3 years on the salary study implementation row there. We have the bonuses, and then we have our lines where we're repurposing ESSER. So in this plan, we're using more ESSER. We're using the same $6 million of fund balance that we had talked about previously. The county request here, we weren't able to get it down to the 2.5 in the second year. As low as we could get it was that 3.6 million. And then the third year, the request would be 10.8 million. In this plan, we would have to repurpose our ESSER in the following ways. We would eliminate the projects or items you see listed here, the HVAC projects, 3.2 million. The PPE supplies and equipment, 350,000. Summer learning, 2 million. After school, 1.6 million. Curriculum, 1.2 million. Teacher assistant scholarships, 225,000. And then, of course, the stabilization. And this position cut would be 265 positions. This is the county request that would go along with this option. As you see with all 3 options, the bottom section is the same as far as our request for next year. What's different is the second and third year. This would bring the total county request at the end of the 3 years to the 110 million, which would include those charter schools. And that's the last presentation.
So, Ms. Sutton, I was just, in option 2 and 3, it says that we are eliminating some HVAC work, and I was just curious as to, is that, are we gonna be able to make it through without these HVAC projects? I mean, I'm just asking, like, I guess I'm not comfortable, I don't see Mr. Anderson, but I think I see somebody else from the,
I believe in option 2, he's able to address the highest needs. We didn't have to eliminate all of those in option 2, just the last, I think it was the last facility project, but this option 3 eliminates all the HVAC and facility projects.
So are those included in, I can't remember off the top of my head, and I didn't bring the capital outlay. Are those in capital outlay things that I got you.
We
Are
did
those
not,
included in there?
we did not have them in capital outlay because at the time we were doing that, we were thinking we would use ESSER for those. So we would
Okay.
have to kind of regroup on that.
So do you know off the top of your head what HVAC things we would be eliminating? I'm a little concerned.
So it would be all in our ESSER, the ESSER budget.
We would just take it out of there to make sure we pay for them.
Yeah, so everything that we were gonna do in ESSER is where we're getting these funds from. So we would start to.
We just start chipping away out of the ESSER funds, but
Yes.
we would still be able to make the HVAC repairs until the money runs out?
Well, no, so there's a priority list. So we're on ESSER, and I'd have to go back and get that budget.
Okay.
On that ESSER, we have allotted X amount of dollars. But remember, in order to support this plan, we have to take money from there to support it.
Right.
So we're not able to do all projects. We just skim away. And we do the ones that meet the top of the priority chart.
But the concern is if we have an HVAC problem and we can't teach in that building, it doesn't matter how much we're paying our teachers because we don't have a school to operate.
So we have to.
I'm just throwing that out.
But that's,
for the
I'll
rest
tell
of
you, that's the predicament we're in.
Okay.
So we have to think about the priorities. So it's like if we go with X amount of dollars for each of these steps, then we have to find the money. We aren't a local taxing authority, so we can't generate revenue. The only revenue we have are our ESSER funds, which is technically a grant, federal grant money. And the grant gives us access to certain areas. But we have to, in order to sustain it, and that's the request that we're trying to.
So I wasn't looking for, I guess I was looking for an answer, but I'm not looking for an answer. I just wanted to bring that to the attention. So, Mr. Wildebohr?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to clarify, make sure I'm understanding this whole picture correctly. On page, I guess it is 3, we are basically in all 3 of the plans, 100% where you're going to cut 34 assistant principal positions over 3 years?
No, sir. So
That's get back in alignment. We're out of
Oh, okay,
alignment.
all right,
So what
okay.
we're saying is when we're looking, we
Right.
are gonna have to pull positions
Gotcha.
and pull back because we can't sustain.
Okay.
Mr. Bullier?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple things. First, when people say that we're heavy in administration, that's true, and that's because of those AP positions. They're showing up as admin positions, that's correct?
school admin positions.
Right, okay, thank you. And then, so, to clarify, just one more thing, who gets the raises first? What positions are in line for the 60?
It would be bus, your grades 55. Did you bring that?
I have it here.
That list of who's in grade 55 and. But I know the bus is in the first group, our hourly custodians, our teacher assistants.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And then, finally, can we cut 134 positions through attrition?
Hey, she was
Oh,
answering
I'm
your
sorry.
question, Nelson.
Probably not through attrition.
Okay.
We will do our best by having unfilled vacancies where we will not fill those vacancies, those vacant positions, and we will be holding tight to our 20-day head count, which means that where in the past individuals have been able to keep positions, even if their numbers didn't show, we will have to redistribute those positions throughout the district
After 20 days.
after 20 days.
I
Ms.
think the
Walker?
obvious route here, I mean, we don't want to cut positions, so I think the obvious route forward is the 16% and 1
All right, well, hold
Or
that
the
thought while we get the
$16
questions
an hour,
answered
1%.
before we start discussing options.
Mine was actually related to your question on HVAC. I don't know why they are listed under ESSER funding. I mean, I feel like HVAC is normal wear and tear and operating. That should probably never have been put in that category. And if they have to be fixed, they have to be fixed. I mean, I hate to see that they would be cut just because they were in part of ESSER and they shouldn't have been.
Well, they actually were supposed to be an ESSER. The ESSER allotment, there's a category in there for repairing roofs, repairing the air quality. And so ESSER tells us to do that. And so we have to follow some of those guidelines. And so we made them fit. If they weren't in there, then your capital budget increases, and then you still have to do a priority list. So what we were able to do is put them in ESSER to get them ahead, and then we put the most expensive in our capital so that we
I
could.
understand how the ESSER fund works. I understand, but we're still going to, just pretend ESSER wasn't even there. We would still have to pay that anyway. I mean, normally wear and tear on HVAC, it's just a normal cost, time cost, so.
But the problem with that is that we would be able to use local funds. And I'm all about the raise. That's not what I'm saying. But when you put $8 million in there, it takes away from those other priorities. So what we're having to do is just reprioritize. That's it.
No,
That's
I
all.
agree with you.
And it's tough. I get it. Everyone wants what they want. But what we now have is a budget that we have to decide what's most important.
Mr. McManus?
It's my favorite saying, guillotine or the rack. To back up, which I was going to say, and Nelson mentioned the 134 positions. If I understand correctly, and then I'll get to my question, at $16 and the 1%, we cut 134. How we do that, that's the potential. It's $17 and 1% raise, we lose 230 positions, and then if we go to the $16 at 2%, 265 positions. That's assuming that, as you said, everything works out perfectly and there are no glitches. So my question is, of the three choices, with 134 or 230 or 265 positions lost, which one still covers and hedges the bets with HVAC and or other issues that might pop up?
Option one.
$16
That's
and
what I thought,
1%.
but I want,
Yes.
I've been paying attention.
That's why I wrote it down, 'cause I wrote down option 2 and option 3, both cut out HVAC. Ms. Justice? Oh, were you jumping in?
Nope, I'm
Okay,
good.
I thought I saw your mouth moving. Okay. Sold.
I'm good.
Ms. Justice?
Okay, here's something that will make some of you happy. The endowment fund you can actually apply properly now that we have more time, so that we could deal with the HVC problem. Because on the actual $1.5 billion in their statement, facilities and those types of needs were something they wanted to have you ask for them to ask. We could do that ask next year, so we could get it. It's in there by the time the endowment. So we could be prepared when you walk in there in the fall, ask them for the funding, and then get it. And that's not the 300 million. That's the 1.5 billion, and everything should be set in place. And that is actually listed in the first five top gives that the endowment's going to give to the community is a facility repair. In fact, we really need to look at that with New Hanover High School. So that should.
Mr. Kudre was here and.
This is
did
not what I'm
say
talking
that
about.
the endowment.
We were talking about another part. It's a very
He
complex
talked to
thing.
us about 2 things.
Listen, he did not talk about that because that didn't come up about the HVAC. And by the way, you didn't give me a chance to bring material in to ask him questions, and I wish I would have, and I would have brought that up. But since he's not here now, and that is a fact, we can ask for that in the fall. The process can go through, and since that's one of the 5 top givens of where the money should be going, I'm sure that they would help us out. I would hope, since they did promise us, that they would help us out with the facilities. As I said, I'm very concerned about New Hanover High School more than anything else because of the age and what's going on with it. But some places like Laney too's got some big issues, so. Just wanted to add that. That's not the end of the process of getting help for our facilities.
So did you have more to present to us, Ms.
No,
Sutton?
I am good. That's the end of my presentation, and just looking for some guidance from the board as far as which county request I can submit.
Okay, so we are at, let's,
Madam Chair?
yes.
I just had one quick question. When will the first cuts be put out there?
So we would look at the vacancies that are open,
Okay.
starting and seeing, and of course, trying to get our enrollment. So we'd look at like that 20th day of school.
Okay.
Yes. And so those positions, if we don't meet those numbers, then we have to not hire for those positions. And then throughout the year, we will start to notice and let individuals know.
Okay.
So with this budget, we do not have to identify positions that we're not filling before the school year starts.
No, so remember, in this budget, we did put the EDI position back in. But remember, you put in, we've got to take out. So it's like you can't have everything. So we will have to start looking in the fall at what will those cuts. So it'll be a harder cut next year around this time.
Around this time.
Yes, we will have let people know that their positions will be cut because we have to build a budget. And then we have to reduce. So if it's the 16-1, then you'll see those was 134. So it's not all in 1 year. We would start to reduce, and the hope would be, if student enrollment increases, then it doesn't do 134. That's what we have to look into.
Ms. Walker?
So, what you guys presented, the county appropriation, the list that had 1 through, I don't know. Does that include all these things that were asked for? In other words, ranked, medium, low, and all this? I don't think I
The
got enough.
capital list, is that what you're holding up?
It says new program requests, local county
Yep.
appropriation.
So those items, anything that was mandatory or continuation, we were able to reprioritize our current funding to be able to fund those. And so that, we had talked about that just briefly last time.
So we didn't get an updated list of this, because I know what we got ranked originally, you got mandatory, continuation, high, medium, low. I just didn't get an
Okay.
updated list on what you guys decided would you would keep and not. I mean, because I had a question, there was one on here, for $91,000, it was a bus driver recruiter trainer. It says it's a high priority, but like, I never really got a chance to ask whether it is really a high priority or not. See, the only reason I ask these, hang on a second. The only reason I ask is because, we've only looked at new asks, but really what I wanted to do when I sent my request in via email yesterday was to see what we've been spending that perhaps we could save on. I've heard from teachers about programs that just aren't that good, that they don't use, just whatever discretionary funds that we spend. Like, I would like to look at all of it.
Right.
Because it's not just about the new asks, it's about what are we spending on what we could save on and maybe not have to spend money on that would probably cover. And the second point is, we had 91, I don't know, was it 91 positions that resigned or retired?
91 people are leaving
I
this
feel like
last
people are
month.
already leaving. I don't know whether or not we're going to have to do all these cuts if we don't have staff
Right.
anyway. So anyway, that's my point. I thank you.
Ms. Justice?
Okay.
I can respond to some of those. So we do look at the old. That's where we would go
I
first.
haven't seen
But that's because we recommend it to the board. So what we have to do is recommend the items to the board. The board then approves. The board doesn't actually recommend to us the position to close. That's actually not how it goes. Once we bring it to you, then you may say, well, hey, we would want to look at this. So we have to go through, look at all departments, bring departments together, have individuals talk about what's working, what's not working, and then we start to pull apart before we just sit at the dais and say, cut this, cut that, cut that. That's not a fair approach of doing that. So that's where that comes from. With the 90 positions, that's normal. That is actually normal in a school district, in an organization where you have retirement. It is normal. It is with 4,100 employees. 90 is a small amount of total employees. So we have to look and see where the priority is in there. Is that a position that will be renewed? Will we need that position? Or maybe we won't need it, but we will look through it. Those are things that we have to do on the internal before we present it to the board, because we can't sit here and make all of those decisions. You have to have a real transparent conversation where we say, this is what we've done. And you'll hear more about that. Because we will. In order to fund your request, we have to get our employee side down to meet the number.
And Can I just add just real quickly? We went through it really briefly at the last meeting, but we did identify when we went through the process that Dr. Faust just described, $1.1 approximately $1 million that we were repurposing to fund the items, some of those items that are on that list. And I will definitely give you an updated list.
I would sure love to, maybe after we pass this, we can have that discussion, because I feel like, I've heard from teachers that say there's programs they just don't use. And I feel like if we're wasting money, then we can save that and not lose staff. So, thank you for answering that.
Ms. Walker? I'm sorry, Ms. Justice.
Okay, and these are good questions, and this is the whole purpose of having this. Like, for example, there's a lot of discretionary funds out there that people have questioned have been used by different schools or different departments, or, actually, say the superintendent, his discretionary funds, things.
Wait, please tell me if there's some saying that I've used some money inappropriately.
We've already had this
We
discussion.
have not had this discussion.
Well, you know what?
No, we haven't.
This is the kind of things where we should have it, and I would like to see, I think it'd be really good that if
I have
we,
never used any money, ever have I used any money unethically.
No, I don't think.
I didn't say that.
When
I didn't say
you are
that.
implying or insinuating that there's funds that the superintendent has used,
That's not what I'm saying, and I do
think
not
I
appreciate it.
believe we need to be careful with our words.
Okay, so
Can I
if
continue
I'm
my
hearing
questions
correctly,
here?
I thought I heard Ms. Justice saying that there were discretionary funds at our disposal. Would you please list what you think those are? Because
I
that
don't
might
even have a
determine-
list due to the fact that I would have liked to find
Hold on,
out.
Ms. Justice is talking. What were you listing? I want to write those down.
Well, at this point, I would like to see what the discretionary funding is for schools. I would like to see it for departments and for the superintendent and how it's used.
But you said you thought we were using that, so what do you think we're
I said
using?
that it's possible that figure could be changed. That's just one example of funding that we need to be
But what
looking
are
at.
they? What are you
Right, this is
suggesting?
not the time. I would like to ask questions, and I'm just giving examples. We can talk about it later, because we've got a lot.
Ms. Justice.
What's pretty broad is I'm trying to continue with my question, all right? Okay, also, these ESSER, that is the 256 that you're talking about, positions that would be lost over time. Are those ESSER funding positions that we have recently hired and will be hiring throughout the next 3 years?
We will not be hiring any more positions. ESSER funds, those ESSER dollars, we're having to move positions over to ESSER to free up state funding.
Okay,
So those are positions that we have. So what we would do is move over those positions and start to eliminate.
At the
okay.
end of the 2 years.
Yes, as
Okay.
they're running out.
Then we come back, and we eliminate the positions. Is that such things as, say, I guess we've got the coaches, the teaching coaches in the schools? There's a number of them that aren't in the classroom actually teaching, but what they're doing is working with the teachers to try to improve their classroom skills to help the children that were going through the trauma of what happened with the pandemic. Is those the groups that you're talking about?
We have not identified which groups.
Okay.
At this point, I can't sit up here and say that these are the ones that we would.
Okay, so,
look into.
in that 265, that's for the whole 3 years, correct?
That's, yes.
Okay.
To get you back into a range where you can afford, and continue to afford the increase that you're going to get.
Okay, and a lot of that would have to do also with natural attrition. Obviously, right now, we've got a high level of attrition going on, and,
No, it's not that high.
well, I would like to, Mr. Barnes? Dr. Barnes, do you have any information on?
Ms. Crable,
Excuse me.
point of
Hold.
order here.
We need
Yeah,
to
I'm waiting
recognize
15 minutes.
Mr. Wildebohr and Mr.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Beaulieu
much.
for-
One of my favorite McManus quotes is, whatever we do is deposits and withdrawals. Very good. I appreciate that. And I think that's what we're doing right here. We're having to figure out deposits and withdrawals. And I have a question. We just mentioned that the EDI position is going to be held, which, that's up to the board. But how many TAs, what's the total cost for that? I mean, I've been a proponent of, and I know we only have 7% of our staffing is at central office, but I'm still going to stay. We need to, take care of the people in the classrooms. And if we're cutting people in the classrooms so we can have somebody at central office, I'm sorry, Pete Wilbor's going to keep arguing that point forever. So what is the total cost of the EDI position plus the 2 supervisors under the EDI position plus the secretary,
So-
roughly?
So we didn't give the rest of it, it's only the
Okay.
one position, because we
Okay.
can't afford to
Okay,
add more. So it's at this point, be a one-man or one-woman show.
okay,
And because we don't know what they would be doing,
right. We don't,
we would
okay.
have to, they would have to build on
And
with
what
that.
would
So
the approximate cost be of that?
so we would have to run, I don't know if, we can get that for you.
Okay,
the
yeah, so
approximate cost.
probably at least two teachers, one other quick, because I haven't had it forever. Can we get a digital copy of whichever plan we come up with?
Yes.
Okay,
Mhm,
okay.
Definitely.
All right, I'm good. Thank you, next.
All right, so just so I'm trying to capture all the thoughts. So Mr. Wildeboer is looking to see what the chief equity officer position would cost that you have in all three options. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And, basically how many TAs we would have to cut or teachers we would have to cut to fund that
On here,
position?
the bus driver.
Or bus driver or whatever.
Coordinator for 91,000, probably would help with that.
Okay, so we're just looking for what the EDI, the chief equity officer position costs, and we can extrapolate, what we're going to have to give up from there. Mr.
thank
Boyer?
you.
Yeah, just one thing on the EDI director, and then I just have a quick comment. But, I'm not for cutting AIG personnel. We got a lot of emails about AIG personnel. I'm 100% behind making sure that those kids have that enrichment. It's an important piece. I didn't receive a single email about the achievement gap, which is striking and massive and really, really important. So, and I know everybody here, we all ran on making sure that we had equitable results in our school system. So that EDI position is important. We need to address that achievement gap as much as we need to make sure that we're enriching our AIG students and taking care of our special needs students. All of it's important. So that's point one. But, I think a lot of times we get these budgets and we just sit there and tear them apart and say, you can do better, you can do better, you can cut here, you can cut here, and we're not in on the budgeting process. This is the third time we've received a budget, and I have to say, I trust our superintendent and I trust Ms. Sutton to bring us the best budget possible within the guidelines and requests that we've set forth. And I think they've done that. I think we can pass that budget with $16 an hour and a 1% increase. It's responsible. And I'm really frustrated by seeing people say, well, not good enough. I hear about programs. Sit down and go through the budgeting process if you guys think you can do it better. But this is a good budget, and I think we should pass it. And if it's appropriate, I'll move for the $16 and 1% increase.
Hold that thought, and we'll just get just a little bit more discussion. I think we only have two hands up, and then we can start talking about a motion so that we can officially discuss one. Mr. McManus?
Nelson, I want you to understand what you said. So you favor cutting the EDI position?
No.
No. What I'm saying is I don't favor that at all.
But that's recommended right now.
Right.
On all three options.
It's included.
It's
No, it's
included first
included
one.
in all three options.
Now?
Yeah.
It's included
Will
in
be,
all
okay.
three
And
options.
AIG, you also support that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes,
We'll make sure.
100%.
Okay.
Both.
Okay.
What I was saying was, we're talking about the position as a central office staff, and maybe we don't want another central office position. And I say, we have this huge achievement gap that nobody talked about. They all talked about AIG. And I understand that because I'm a father, like I said, and I would talk about AIG too. But that EDI position is important.
Yes.
Ms. Justice?
Yeah, and absolutely, I don't think anybody agrees. It's just a conversation was how to do it more efficiently so that, we get the bang for the buck, which is what all this is about. I do have some concerns. Over the last couple years, there's been some positions added administratively, central office, and I'm not clear on how many and exactly what purposes. I know that also the ESSER funders, which was great, brought in such, I'm just going to use that as an example because it's just on top of my mind right, but it's not the only one. The teachers, coaches, the coaching teachers, whatever. And yet we don't have enough teachers to cover the classroom. So a lot of this has to do with perception, priority, and understanding what's going on. And more than anything, I'm trying to understand what's going on. Because out there in the classroom every day, we're struggling. We're really struggling. And a lot of it has to do with the pandemic, but also some of the cultural situations that have occurred. So what we're trying to find out is how the money's being spent, if it's being spent wisely. And I still am not really super clear. And I'm still, they say we're going to be losing using these positions, but, 265 versus, say, 160. But what are they, and how many positions have we added over the last 2 years that, possibly put those positions in jeopardy because now we have those and what they're doing? Those are the kinds of questions I wish I did have time to ask and understand, but, as I said, right now, my main concern is what's going on in the classroom, in the schools, and we are in pretty darn bad shape because of the, whether you admit it or not, because we're going to be struggling to get staff over the summer of quality, and the people that are going to be coming in are probably going to be younger people without the experience, and the experienced educators are everything to our student success. So I'm very disturbed about still lack of information on certain areas.
So today I'm just asking for approval to submit a county request, and once I submit the county request, I'll start building our budget for next year based on the criteria that we've talked about, and then once I know the county funding, then I'll be able to come back to you with an actual budget. So this is just to be able to submit a request to the county.
Right, this is not the line item. I'm sorry, Ms. Walker, I had you down.
I just wanted to speak just a minute about oh, was that a sneeze? I heard somebody say something. I just wanted to speak just for a minute on the what was mentioned about this EDI position and its importance. As a chair of EDI, I have noticed all the hard work that's gone into it. Dr. Faust made a great move by creating the office, and I think we all appreciated it by putting Dr. Smith in that position. We finally had somebody that could be the point person for us. There is a large disproportionality in this district of students that are just not performing well, and that it needs people to, to look at the problem, fix the problem, have someone come to us and tell us how things are going, present for us what we need to do and the solutions, and also coordinating all the people that do that work. So, I know there's some people don't feel like that is important, but I feel like it absolutely is. Otherwise, superintendent wouldn't have created the office to begin with. The need is definitely there, and I thank you for putting it back in. That's all I wanted to say.
So before we go to Mr. Wildeboer, Dr. Faust pulled out some information that Ms. Justice was requesting.
Oh, I'm sorry, Walter.
No,
So last year, the 2021 budget, or 21-22 budget, the ask for positions were 5. Executive Director of Enrichment Schools or Priority Schools, Director of Curriculum and Instruction, a lead science teacher, Director of College and Career Readiness, and Director of Employee Relations and HR Investigations. Those are the only positions that we had asked for.
Okay, could you send those to me in a form of email?
They are actually in the email that I sent to you on Tuesday from Mary Hazel, the one that you were saying that you were getting. So I sent that. They're in that PowerPoint presentation. And that was in the board. That's what the board approved for us last year. We had not hired for the Director of College and Career Readiness. Once we did the interviewing. I had them hold the position because just as I had them hold this one, I would not allow us to hire for this position until the state budget dropped. So it didn't come through until February. So I want you to understand how tight I am with this budget. It's not a free-for-all, and there's no unethical deliverance or movement on that budget. So they can go back and they can ask, it's like, well, we have it, but that budget was not, even though it was approved here in July, I would not allow them to hire until the state approved their budget. It would not. And so you can go back and look and see, well, when did we hire those positions? It will align with the state. We hired the individual for Priority Schools. I think he came on in January. The Director of Curriculum, you did approve that one. That one did come in July. I think we may still be looking, or I think someone is out on FMLA or something for one of these other positions. But those are the only things we hold tight to what the board asked, because if the board didn't approve it, we don't give it. It's that simple. There's nothing to hide. There's no undercover. There's nothing. So when we sit there and we say those things, that becomes offensive in the credibility. But I want everyone to understand that when we are talking about positions or spending money, we hold ourselves accountable for that. And it's a tight process, and people do get upset because they want it, they can see it, but it's like, no, you can't have that. The high school, of course, we have some high school, we have some elementary principals. They do have budgets. They have their budgets, and we don't micromanage it may be, let's say if it's drink funds or whatever, I don't say you can spend that on this. That's not what we do. Or if it's, sometimes the PTAs will purchase things for schools. We don't oversee those budgets because there is a line item. However, what you got, that was the full budget of every school, every person. So there's nothing to hide. And any time that any of you want to come and sit and ask about a PRC, I'll go through it with you one-on-one.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Mr. Wildebohr?
I just wanted
Mr.
to
Wildebohr was
ask
next.
him a question
Wildebohr.
right off of what he had said to me.
Okay.
You're out of
I'm
order.
going to go ahead and just speak. So I'm going to go back to what we've been talking about, and I think, I'll tell you about the worst day that I had in education, and that was when I walked around with slips to tell people that, I'm sorry, you've been riffed, you have to go talk to the superintendent. And I, in all good conscience, I can't say, well, we need, though, an EDI position, it may be a very, very important position, but I can't say that a classroom teacher, I'm sorry, you don't have a job anymore because we need somebody else at central office. I mean, as I shared, there are a lot of other counties that have people that do 2 and 3 jobs. Yeah, in a perfect world, it'd be great to have a person just to do this and a person to do just this. Am I saying that we don't have, some division, some students that are not as doing as well? Obviously, that's obvious. That's not something we have to talk about because that is, it's a lot we have to talk about. I'll say that I said that incorrectly, but it is something we need to look at. But I just can't see funding. Even if it's only 2 teachers, I'm sorry, you can't teach anymore because we need to have somebody else at central office. Down the road, maybe we can do it. This is a position that only started this year, so it's not like we've had this position forever, and it's a position we need to keep, and there's no way around it. I'm a strong proponent of doing everything we can in the classroom to begin with, and then building up. And like I say, I'm going to say that. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm sure I'm going to get people throwing things at me, but that's fine.
Mr. McManus, did you need to add in?
I do have
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I was just going to say, I do have an update on the EDI costs of that chief position.
Thank you.
Including the benefit packet and everything, around $150,000, which would be about 3 TAs. I think that was the
3
question.
TAs, okay. All right. Well, I'm
And that
going to stay where
includes
I
the
am.
state raise.
Right.
Thank you for gathering that information. We appreciate that timely. Mr. McManus, did you want to finish your question?
I was just trying to make a point. Dr. Faust gave out some information a couple of meetings ago, maybe 3,
Yeah, that's it.
about the arena of retention and or loss of teachers in our area, well, actually for the state. If I remember, we're not one of the top schools in loss of teachers. Obviously, region makes a lot of difference in what happened because we're competing against the Raleighs and the Chapel Hills, but in the western counties, that's kind of like home for everybody. They don't go anywhere. But I don't remember us being really at the top of that other than the norm, as you stated. So I just kind of wanted to make sure everybody understood that because there are a lot of people saying that we're the only one that's got this problem. That's not accurate at all.
And, okay, Mr. Boyer?
Yeah, just real quick to Mr. Wildebohr's point. No, we haven't had the position for a year, but we've had the problem for 40 years.
Yeah, no doubt.
So, I do, again, we all ran on the exact same thing, and I know how important what goes on in a classroom is, but it's also important that we have that type of direction. With regards to central office positions, that's where I just kind of get frustrated, is it's a smear when you just say, there are these positions, and you don't name what position you're talking about, and you don't talk about, okay, well, this is the specific program you can cut, and this, it's just a smear, and it's designed, I think, to, make us look inept, and it's not fair. The board is the one who approves the positions. So whatever central office position was approved by this board. So I really don't think that we should be criticizing all of that stuff, so. And then, again, can I make a motion? 'Cause
Well, wait a sec,
I was getting ready to just wrap that up, and then I'll get a motion. Yes.
okay, because I did not get a chance to ask Fallow, well.
Go ahead,
Could you, what my request is I would like to have a copy of all of the discretionary funds according to departments and to the schools, because this is something that I have been concerned about, and people have mentioned in the past, because I'm not sure of the amount. And in order for us to make any kind of understanding of what's going on, we need to see the actual numbers. So if you could please do that in the future. And as far as the central office, I'm not going to sit down right now and talk about that, because we're going over the budget right now, but that is something that we do need to have discussions on, because I've been hearing this for years, and I've also seen some things in there that causes me to question, and I'm not the only one.
Tell me what you've seen, because
I said right now, we're going to do, well,
I'm interested in that.
all right, well, for example, the positions in the communications department, I just use that because I'm just looking right down, Mr. Smith, nothing bad, he's good. But the fact is that there's got 5 different positions in there. They're not, and, you know, they seem to be adding instead of just stabilizing. I don't believe that there were that many previously under Dr. Markley, and wasn't even sure then what was going on. That's just one example.
So you're calling that a discretionary fund?
Discretion?
You said, I asked you for an example of a
No,
discretionary
that's two
fund.
different topics totally.
No, I asked you, what are you saying are discretionary funds that you have heard that have been going on that are bad?
I said I would like copies of the amount so I could look at them. I didn't say that. That was a totally different topic. I was talking about central office. But these are things I would like to have information on, about the amounts of the different discretionary funds and the different programs. Whether it's in leadership or just the programs itself. Because, and the schools too, because I think that's something we do need to look at. If, people, and if it's absolutely fine, it's fine, but you can't tell if you don't know, so I would like that information. And that was a different topic about, central office and the amount of staffing there. And, okay?
All right, so with all of that, here is, just to wrap us all up, and then I'm going to ask for a motion. So we have heard 3 different budget presentations, 3 different county requests to the county presentations. We've heard option 1, $16 minimum with a 1% step, that eliminates 134 positions. We've heard option 2, $17 minimum with a 1% step, that eliminates 230 positions. Option 3, $16 minimum with a 2%, and that eliminates 265 positions. Do I hear a motion to accept any of these? Hang on, I'm asking, do I hear a motion?
Move for option 1, $16 an hour and a 1% increase.
Okay, is there a second for that? Hugh, okay, so now, you have a discussion on that?
It's your turn.
Yes, you said you wanted to talk about something. You're going to do that, okay. All right, so we've got a motion and a second to adopt option 1, $16 minimum with the 1% step. So is there any more discussion? Ms. Justice?
Yeah, I'm concerned about losing staff. And I'm not talking about these figures about the losing of the staff because of the change of the budget. I'm talking about immediately right now over the summer next year. The $17 an hour will help us retain some of our classified staff that would, the 16, the difference will make a big difference to some of our employees. And, nothing is perfect. Things are fluid. Things are going to change. I am not going to think that we're losing students. Some people up here are very, upset and think that's what's going to happen. This community is growing. If we keep our quality staff by giving them the $17 the way I'm looking at it, then our schools will keep improving. There's not going to be people taking kids out of schools. The public schools have always been the best option. It was only circumstantial, sadly, about the pandemic that caused all kinds of confusion, and sadly, it was almost political more than anything else. It didn't have to do with practicality about what was going on with your kids. That's changing now. The perception of, our public schools are more welcomed as far as being, back to business as usual. I'm concerned, though, that because of the current economy, it's just a reality, we're going to lose more of our TAs. So we were talking about 100 people, possibly, and may not even that many, about through attrition, and we do improve our our numbers of students, then we are going to be getting the money from the state, and we can still work with the county commissioners. This is for right now, and this is for something I'm concerned about. We're going to lose more of our employees if we go to the 16 instead of the 17. This is just a reality.
Okay, Mr. McManus, did you have somebody, did you have your hand up? No, ma'am. Okay, Ms. Walker, go ahead and make a comment. We'll just go down the line, everybody can get a comment, and then we're gonna vote. We're not gonna go back and
So
forth.
this is just about what Mr. Boyer had just asked.
This is his
for in a
motion,
second.
yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
So the cut is 134 over the 3 years. That's what we're saying.
Right.
Just to make sure I
Yes.
know what I understand, and that's with all 3 plans.
Yes.
But I guess my question is,
That's with just this plan.
no, I know, the 134 with this plan.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's why I would just, with any of them, it's a cut, but I
Yes.
just wanted to make sure it was over 3 years. And I know you're presenting a 3-year plan. I guess we can't predict the future. I guess I just worry that by scaring ourselves against these other 2, perhaps that things might change. Like, say, enrollment numbers may go up. I know we're going to look at it every year, right? We have to pass a budget every year. So I don't know. I hate to see this stuff that it wants to frighten us to not look at the other ones, because we're looking at this now based on now. We're not looking at it at 3 years. We are technically, but I mean, next year it could be different. So I guess I just worry if we go for the one that's less scary, it looks less scary, and next year changes, we might have different numbers. We might have to cut as many positions. So I guess there's no question.
So you also have to consider, the state is also given a 2.5% increase.
They're
So-
giving it?
They're given, in July, there'll also be a 2.5% increase. So as long as the state is also continuing to give increases, it supports the other. However, let's say we do get to 27,000, you can always come and revisit. However, you never want to get so far out of sequence. But I will say, with our projections, there is another charter school that's opening. And so we've got to look to make sure, hey,
Do you know?
they're opening, so we won't know.
So
what
we
they're-
don't know the enrollment.
No,
Okay.
they're going to be opening. So we have to take into consideration that some may try it, and then if they come back after the 20th day, we don't get funding for
Make
them.
it good, and we get more students. I don't know, I just
No, we
like
get
to
more
be-
students with no money.
Well, I mean, next year. I
Right.
just mean, I like to look at it half full. That's all.
Mr. Wildebohr?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I just look at this whole budget. I mean, it's a tough budget because, cutting positions is always extremely tough. And I know we'd all like to have our own little thing or whatever it may be, but I am stubborn and I'm just going to keep hitting the same thing. And I hate to sound like a broken record, but I think it's so important to have the staff well-paid, so, not well-paid, but at least making a decent amount. To Ms. Justice's point, the $17 with 1%, I think that's something we need to look seriously at. And especially, like I say, I'm just going to keep going, and I know a couple of you have said, well, we want to have this position, this is a very important position. I'm not arguing that. What I'm arguing is that in a lot of other counties, people do 2 and 3 jobs. It's not something that in a perfect world, yeah, it'd be great to have that, every position, in their own little thing. As Dr. Fowle said, we've separated science and math. For a long time, a person did a great job doing, my wife mentioned a lady that she worked with, Karen Green, who did a fantastic job doing both jobs. It's not the best situation always, but it is something that can be done. So, when we're looking at 3 TAs possibly having to be RIF'd possibly to fund that position up there, I just can't, I can't abide with that. So, and if you look at our strategic goal plans, it's not the number one, if it was number 1, I'd say, well, I guess we'll have to step back and look at it. But it's number 4 in that list. So with that being in mind, I would like to look at, taking that position, maybe looking at next year and looking at the possibility of funding that position if we do have increased funds next year. But for the short term, I think we need to look at what we can do in the classroom over what we can do in other places. So that's my opinion. Humble.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Yeah, real quick, I know people like to talk about toxic positivity, but I don't think it's going to help enrollment when we have people running around saying we have somebody not doing a good job with the budget, and we have, our schools are in crisis. They're not in crisis, but here's the reality. We had a 95% market share 10 years ago, or 15 years ago. We're at 85% market share right now. So I don't believe that, we can just go on a wing and a prayer and say our numbers are definitely going to go up. I think this is the only responsible course that we have. I think this is a budget that gets us as much of what we want as possible. It is not perfect. And I wholeheartedly agree with everybody. Our staff needs as much support as they can get. And I believe that this budget gives them as much support as we can give responsibly right now. So I want to thank everybody who worked day and night to put together 7 different iterations of budgets. I really do. I think you guys are, you're incredible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so just to wrap up, I just wanted to weigh in on, I am in support of the option number 1, 2, because I think it is the most palatable that we will get from our county commissioners right now. We can plan this out over 3 years, but we have no guarantee over year 2 and year 3 around that. If our numbers are even lower, then we're not gonna get the extra money in there. So I don't know, I'm not saying it's a sure thing, but I would like to go for the surest thing that we have, and just wanted to remind us that we are not here voting on what's actually in that budget. We are actually voting on what we're going to ask for. And if we get that amount, then we get to decide, we'll get to look at the budget that Dr. Faust and his team prepare, and then we get to go through positions that we don't like and discuss them again. So I don't think, and I don't necessarily think that we should be using this county request as any sort of political maneuvering around different positions. We need to see what is best, for our students and our staff in there. So that is.
When are y'all presenting? That's all I wanted to know. When are you presenting to the county?
So I'm submitting the request as soon as
we leave.
Okay,
and then we'll receive an invitation, and I believe it was mid-June.
Right.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to know.
May, I thought.
May?
They're having a work session, and they'll go over all the requests in May, and then I think we actually give our presentation in June, if I remember correctly. We'll
So
get an
again-
invitation at what time and everything. We don't have the information yet.
We are only voting on what we are going to ask for, and then there's another step after that. So, Ms. Bowie, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Justice,
No.
Mr. McManus,
Yes.
Ms. Walker,
No.
Ms. Craybill,
Yes.
Mr. Wildebohr,
No.
and Mr. Boyer.
Yes.
Okay, so that's 3 to 3. It does not pass. Yes, hold on.
Can we have Ms. Adams, she can zoom in? Is
She
that-
left.
is
No,
that
she
allowed?
left.
She can't do that.
Can we ask Colin, is that allowed that she can come back into the meeting?
She left.
The,
She can get.
Colin can weigh in, but I don't know that Ms. Ms. Adams, I'm sorry, everyone, I feel like a grandmother. She has not been here for our discussion, so it is not, in my opinion, it's not appropriate for her to vote. Colin, would you like to weigh in?
Yes, I agree with Ms. Craybill. Under policy, in order for a member to attend remotely and to vote remotely, they need to have been a part of the discussion deliberation leading up to the vote.
Right, and so I have not seen her as part of our Zoom. Was she part of our Zoom, Ms. Bowie? Okay. All right, so now we have,
Madam Chair?
hold on, Nelson, please let me just talk. All right, so now we have no motion on the table, and I need a second motion or another motion, because we cannot leave here until we pick one.
I have a motion.
Ms. Justice,
The proposal number 2 with the $17 an hour, 1% raise,
okay, is there, motion JJ, is there a second?
Second.
And SW. So I don't believe we need to have any more discussion about it, unless anybody thinks that we do, because it's the same discussion around the first one. All right,
Chair?
so
Madam Chair,
Yeah,
I would just like to, so we're basically saying this 17 with one, keeping the EDI position.
Mr. Wildebohr, I just explained, is that we are not talking about specific things. We are talking about an amount. We get to talk EDI when they bring the budget back. So this is the overall budget that you're voting for. So we have, the motion on the floor is to propose option 2 to the county commissioners, $17 minimum with a 1% increase, eliminating over the course of 3 years, 230 positions. Ms. Bowie, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Bullier,
No.
Mr. Wildebohr,
Yes.
Ms. Craybill,
No.
Ms. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. McManus,
No.
and Ms. Justice.
Yes.
Okay, so that's 3 to 3. That one doesn't pass.
Good grief.
Mr. McManus?
Question. So that everybody's on the same page, because I'm not sure we are. We are recommending one of the 3 options.
Yes.
EDI, AIG, which
None of this counts.
But they're in there, they're in all
Yes.
3 of them.
that's not a determinant on either of the 3. She needs to submit, and then what's involved will be another discussion.
Yes.
So you're not voting to add or delete AIG, or
No.
we're voting to submit our plan, then they work out what is and what isn't.
You're voting on
So
the
thank you
dollar
for
amount.
restating that again,
Some of
yes.
us think that by voting on one, we're getting something.
No,
No, we're
What
not.
we
I'm
are
only-
is we're losing more teachers.
Over
We
3
still
years.
got to work
over
out.
3 years.
We're losing more teachers, the
Still a lot of
potential to lose more teachers.
Teachers
All
don't
right,
have a
so
plan
I
to
would
bear
like to
down.
make
Not even teachers.
another motion that we go back to option 1, $16 minimum, 1%, that would reduce potentially 134 people over a course of 3 years. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay.
Discussion?
All right, do we need to discuss this again?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Okay, I think those positions, are those all teaching positions you're talking about?
No.
Okay, thank you. That could be any number, I mean, we've got, a groundskeeper, you name it. There's all kinds of positions that we have. So let's not say we're going to be cutting all these teachers when it's staff, and I really do think we're going to change. And I know that there's other funding out there, but that's my opinion. But the most important thing to me, once more, is treating our current employees so they want to stay. Picking the lowest amount is not going to help. These people that can go over to Domino's and get $19, $20 an hour without all the pain. And, I mean, they love the education or they wouldn't be in it. But right now, they're going through a lot of stress, and if they decide, to leave, I can understand why, if we don't think enough of them, to at least give them, I'm serious, the $17 an hour raise in the one step. The 16 is almost an insult to a lot of our employees, and they're watching this right now.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Walker?
Oh, thank you.
I didn't mean to be a snob with my voice,
No,
sorry.
no. So this is one of the plans that was recommended to us through the salary study.
Yes, it was.
To Ms. Justice's point, these aren't all teachers. And also, we are losing some as well. So it's not as if like everything is going to just be cut. Every 230 people are going, teachers themselves will be cut. It's other positions as well, and some that were funded with ESSER. Let's be honest, some that were funded with ESSER that, I don't know will end up staying. So, because when we hired them with those funds, we were under the impression that they would not be permanent. So I just want to make that point as well.
I see your mouth. Mr. Bullier?
Yeah, I hope that you can provide some of our employees with that number for Domino's, because if you do your $17 plan, you're agreeing to lay off 96 more. So, I don't know how much respect we're showing people by saying, well, you're a groundskeeper, you don't really need to have a job. It's just a groundskeeper position. Everybody who works in our system is an educator. Everybody who works in our system works with kids and is an educator. So I think it's really irresponsible and disappointing that, we're not looking at what's best for the entire system, in my opinion, with a $17 an hour budget. $16 an hour is, I think it's responsible. But
Mr. McManus, your mouth is moving.
You may not be able to answer this. Is there do you have any percentiles from classroom teachers to non-certified in that breakdown of loss of positions?
We don't know.
We can. So what happens in that 135? We look at average cost. So we have to project. So what'll happen is we will go back to all of those individuals who are heads of departments. We'll sit down and we start to look and say, okay, what will we be looking at the end of this year? And it may be 15 people, positions, we'll say positions, or maybe 20 positions. These are things that we can cut and get rid of. But we have to have a way to fund the next year's budget. So that's basically what it is. So we won't be looking just at classroom. That's why we're saying they know we've got to look at central office. We have to look at operations. We have to look at student support. Every opportunity, when we say that there's an opening, it's like, we're not going to fill that position. That's also considered cutting a position. So there is a process that we use. But I will say the process has to be a little more deeper the more you give in order to sustain it. Because remember, you're projecting next year, all of this is the projection. And we're saying 25,000, but let's say we roll in at 24,000 equal. That's going to even be harder.
So in our next year budget, could we revisit, we can revisit this and go back up with $1 more or 50 or whatever. So
Come down.
everybody understands we're on the same page. We're not locked in.
The board is never locked in.
We can, okay.
Ms. Grable, Madam Chair?
Let me have my turn, then you come back to you. So I just want to remind folks of what the actual money is that we're talking about. And it goes back to my comments before that I would like to send a budget to a request to the county commissioners that I think can get funded. If you look in option 1, we're asking them for $9 million. If we look in option number 2, we're asking for $12 million, which is an increase of $3 million that I'm not certain that, with my conversations with them, we are not going to get. And then if we ask for option 3, the 16 plus 2, we're asking for $16 million. I personally think that we should go for a bet that is more sure than, and again, none of them are sure. But all this is going to do is, if we don't come in with something that is palatable, they're going to send it back, and then we're going to be sitting here doing this all over again on Monday after you present this on Friday.
And then by
Today.
law, you have to have a budget by June 30th.
Yes, so
We have to.
we are under the gun, and I think we should look at the overall dollar and not what's in it, because we're going to decide that later. This is not about teaching positions, staff positions. It's not about that. It's about how much we're going to ask so that we can then go and make those harder decisions. Mr. Wildebohr?
Just a quick question. We're talking about 134 positions in the Plan 1 over 3 years. Any idea what year 1 would be on Plan 1 and Plan 2? Like, how many positions would we have to cut this year in those 2 plans?
So we have not outlined that, but I would assume we would try to do as much through vacancies as we could and push out as far as we could, and just as vacancies come up. The first step, as we had talked about before, is to identify, looking at funding formulas and identify the different areas, and then I'm sure we would come back with something.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so again, reiterate, we don't know exactly what it is. We just know what we think we're going to have to look at. So we're not here to decide any of that right now. So there is a motion on the table to accept option 1, $16 minimum with a 1% step increase, and for the amount of $9 million request. And so, Ms. Bowie, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Justice?
No.
Mr. McManus?
Yes.
Ms. Walker?
No.
Ms. Craybill?
Yes.
Mr. Wildebohr?
No?
And Mr. Bullier?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Shive, question for you. So we seem to be at an impasse. What do we do?
Keep voting.
So that means we give you nothing to send?
Right.
And they just go, okay, give us whatever they want?
So the board has to pass, or the board has to make its request by May 15th. And so the board can either try to keep voting today to resolve the split, or you can meet again.
Madam Chair, could I?
Hold on a second. Let me just gather some thoughts for a moment.
Can I recommend we take a 5-minute break and
Yeah.
rest?
There you go.
And then we'll come
All
back.
right, if we take a 5-minute break, we cannot go in the back and discuss this. We can't discuss it amongst ourselves.
Use the
bec-
bathroom?
We may use the bathroom, yes, you may. I'll give you the hall pass.
We can- we
We
can
are
discuss
not
it.
allowed to discuss this while we're on our break, because we need to discuss it in front of the camera. So let's take a 5-minute break. Everybody take a deep breath, give yourself some thoughts, and we will come back. Plug gavel? Okay. Okay. Okay, we're back in session. I'm going to lead off the comments and then I will get you next. All right, so we're in a position here that we need to give the county commissioners some direction. They have to look at what we're asking for. Judy, I see you. We have to give them some direction. They asked for it yesterday, gave us leniency for today. So obviously, we are not going to pass. It looks like we're on a stalemate.
We don't know that.
I am talking, please. It looks like we're on a stalemate. So here are options as I see them, and then we can have some discussion around that. So we can either vote again on something, on one of these three options. We can adjourn the meeting, and we can reconvene at a time that is convenient, so everybody needs to get out their calendars. Ms. Justice, I know that your hand is up. I'm still talking. I know, I can't ignore because the hand keeps saying so we can pick a date as soon as possible and to make sure that all of us can be here. And we will need to have an odd number of people here because it looks like we are at an impasse unless someone changes their position. So we all have gotten a notice from Ms. Bowie about the meeting that to continue our meeting will be Thursday afternoon. Or we can vote to have another meeting where we come back and we sit and we discuss this budget. So now I'll open the floor for discussion on the options that I have presented, and we'll certainly entertain anybody else's options.
I'm making a motion.
Ms. Justice.
That's what we're supposed to be doing, making motions. I would like to motion that once more we revisit option number 2.
Okay.
That is what Colin said to do, is keep voting until you resolve something. Okay?
Madam Chair?
Okay, there's a motion on that. Is there, let me write it, let me get my motion again. Judy Justice, is there a second?
Second.
Is there a second? Mr. Wildebohr, now, discussion.
If I could, Madam Chair?
Yes, I hear you.
My thought on this is, as was said, you know, that, well, if we bring it to the county commissioners, they say no, it comes back to us, okay? That's very possible, very, very possible. But then we can talk about it again, and there's nothing, in my mind, that's horrible about that. So that's dialogue between us and the county commissioners. We would like to be able to fund our folks at this level. I don't think anybody disagrees, we would like
Can you
to.
hold just a second? Is Mr. Shive still on the call with us?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I didn't see your face up there, so I just wanted to make sure.
So,
Hang on, please.
thank you. So my thought is, again, we could discuss it. If they say no, or hey, let's look it back, then it's back in our laps, and we do that. If they say, you know, we also, you know, I think that the ones I've talked to anyway are very much in support of us. I understand it's $3 million more, and I've never seen $3 million in my whole life. But the bottom line is, you know, to support, you know, they also are saying we need to really support our TAs. So, worst case scenario, they send it back to us, and then we go back to the other one, and we say, yeah, well, that's what they're gonna fund us at, and there we are. But it's a solution to it. It's a situation that we go out there and we ask for the best for our folks. If it comes back to us and they say no, then it's no, and it's not the end of the world.
Mr. Boyer?
So, no, it's not the end of the world, but it would be the end of the world for 96 people. And you, Mr. Wildebohr, said that that was the worst day you had in education.
It was.
And you said that you want 3 TAs over an EDI position. And you're here literally supporting a budget that will cut many more TAs than 3. And so I just don't see the consistency. I agree, they need the money. I agree. But you are cutting more. More will lose money to give some money. And so I just don't see the consistency.
Okay, Ms. Walker?
I was first, but that's
But
okay.
it's your turn. We need to have everybody talk first before we go
Okay.
back around.
Okay, oh, right, of course. I just want to reiterate that this is one of the things the salary study people brought to us, based on the cost of living, based on inflation, based on what it costs to live here. And if we don't start with one of those recommendations, you paid a lot for that study that told us this. And I feel like if we don't pick one of those plans, like, we're not listening. Because obviously the TAs that come in and tell us they have 2 jobs and they can't sustain that to live here in this area, and that's not our fault. Like I keep saying, we're not a revenue producing entity, so we have to rely on them. And I hope they got a copy of the salary study, and if not, I'm gonna send it to them because they need to see the reasoning behind one of these choices. And this is the one that seems to be the middle of the road, so that's why that's why I picked it.
Mr. McManus?
Would the other 3 consider could we do 17 and no percent? At least to present to the board, the county commissioners, excuse me? Is that even something that's,
We would have to rescale that.
okay,
So
so that's not really
we
workable
don't
at
have
this
that
point?
one, right.
Okay.
And
I'm just
to
trying to
Ms. Walker's
meet everybody in
point,
the middle here.
is that if all 3 of these were presented to us as viable options, so we're not going against the salary study. All 3 of them were presented to us as viable options.
They recommended 2, the
They
6,
recommended
17, and 1,
two.
or 16 and 2. That's
So
what they recommended.
then, after Judy speaks, I recommend we dismiss and have another meeting and then.
Hold
vote.
on, that's not part of this discussion. Ms. Justice?
Actually, it is.
Well, the salary study, they recommended it too. The 17 point, and the 1% increase or the 16 and 2% increase. That's a fact. We spent a lot of money on that. They did a lot of work. We're shedding our TAs over the summer. They're going to probably find out that it's not worth it when they start making a lot more money in their other jobs they have to survive. That's my take on that. We're going to lose people over time. A lot of this might go to attrition, and it may not happen anyway because we're talking 3 years down the line. There's no givens in the world. We certainly didn't know about the pandemic. And this area is growing rapidly, despite the fact that we've lost kids because of the pandemic. We're also gaining people because of the reality. People love our area. So I am not going to say that this is set in stone about losing all of those employees, but I do know we will lose employees if we keep it at if we put it at $16 an hour and not follow the recommendations of that, that very well-done study. I was so impressed by it. And I do know that the county commissioners, as I think Mr. Willerbor mentioned, there's at least a couple on there that I know for sure, 3 on there, that want to have the TAs probably make $17 an hour. They were saying that during our joint meeting, which, by the way, if you remember right, during that joint meeting, Dr. Faust kept insisting we couldn't use the ESSER money any way except the way he had it set up. I kept asking if we could move it, and so did Ms. Hayes. And lo and behold, we can. So, nothing is set in stone. But what is set as fact is the fact that we're going to lose employees if we don't treat them properly, especially all the other staff, well, all of them, every one of them. And this would send a huge message that we are trying our best to have their lives made better because we care about how important they are and get them to stay.
Call the question.
Hold on, it's my turn to come back down. I do want to dispute that we know for fact that we're going to lose people. So I don't think we should be throwing out the word fact when we don't have a fact. So that's one to put that point out. So we're going to have Mr. Wildeboer give us one more comment, and we're going to vote on this again and see where we are.
Well, first off, to my learned colleague, I appreciate you listening so closely to me, and I still stand by my statement before. Worst day of my educational career was walking around with those letters, absolutely. That's why I asked the question, how many of those folks are we going to lose this year? How many are we going to lose through attrition? Like I say, we can't look down, we are looking down 3 years, but we also can't necessarily look down 3 years and say, we may lose 150, we may lose, none, we don't know. But I do think that the TAs, all the classified staff, I'm not going to list them all out, they do need to have at least a living wage. Is that $16 with 1%? Is that $17 with 1%? I think we all heard very clearly from them that they think that number is 17. the salary study says that, that is a viable option, so, and like I say, as I just said, I don't think it's, let's ask the county commissioners, we're not asking for the stars, but, and if they come back and say, no, that's not gonna work, that's what happens, goes back and forth, we have that final discussion. If we go 16 with one, we're not gonna get any more than that. If we say 17 with one, maybe they will come back and say 17 with none or something, somewhere in between. But that's what compromise is all about, so.
Okay, Ms. Bowie, will you please call the roll?
Can we say what the motion is again, please?
The motion is, on the table, was from Judy, that says we are proposing option 2 that Ms. Sutton presented to us, $17 minimum with a 1% step increase, with the possibility of losing 230 employees over the course of 3 years, and for the cost of $12 million. So, Ms. Bowie, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Boyer?
No.
Mr. Wildebohr?
Yes.
Ms. Craybill?
No.
Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. McManus?
Yes.
And Ms. Justice?
Yes, thank you, Hugh.
Move to adjourn.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, we're adjourned.